Gas went up almost 11% in August in the CPI.
Jared, I'm going to ask you about PCE and CPI. So we now have two inflation reports in a row where year over year the headline inflation number has gone up. You couple that with real average hourly wages are actually down since the day President Biden took office, about 3%. So is that Bidenomics?
Yeah, no, I think we have a disagreement on a fact there. So, and we can certainly show you CEA's data on this. Real wages are up relative to before the pandemic. They're up for all private sector workers, but they're up even more for production non-supervisory workers. That's a term from the establishment survey that comes out every month. It's 80% of the workforce that's either blue collar in manufacturing or non-managers in services, and those wages are actually above the pre-pandemic level in real terms. So we just have a factual disagreement there. Much more fairness into the very top end of the tax code. So really two very important values to this president: a much more fair progressive tax code hitting only those above 400,000, and if we're talking about some of these measures, well above that, millionaires and billionaires, who he often talks about paying an 8% effective tax rate. That's not okay in a in an economic context where congressional Republicans. Turning to Bidenomics, we start from a position of strength. The U.S. economy is in solid shape, with real GDP growth supported by strong consumer spending that is itself supported by a strong labor market delivering wage gains, accounting for inflation. And I have a next figure showing that the extent to which you see inflation coming down and prices and wages actually beating prices there, both for all workers and for middle wage workers. This figure includes today's inflation report. Not only has inflation come down, it's now growing more slowly than the pay of low and middle wage workers, meaning their buying power is increased. Now, our work isn't done for sure, but wages outpacing inflation is some of the breathing room that the president talks about. Now, what has that got to do with Bidenomics? Well, rising real wages for middle and low wage workers is at the heart of our middle out, bottom up.
Thanks, Jared. You mentioned gasoline prices pushing inflation up last month, but there are no good signs when it comes to gasoline prices in the near term. Crude oil prices are going up. Saudi Arabia has signaled it's going to continue to throttle oil production. Are you worried that inflation is going to go back up over 4%?
Well, let's talk about gas prices. Gas prices are down from last summer's high by about $1.20 per gallon. They peaked at north of $5 in June of 22. The key point there is that when wages are beating prices, there you go. So you have wages beating prices, wages growing more quickly than inflation. And so a persistently tight labor market has delivered wage gains that at this point are beating prices. That means that the buying power of your paycheck is going up, and that's the kind of breathing room we're looking for.